Welcome to the National University online class. During this pandemic, I feel proud to be the part of this National University online class lecture as a resource person. Please maintain the health rules. We will talk about Elizabethan and Jacobean drama. Paper code 231101. Now, we are going to discuss Volpone by Ben Jonson. The play Volpone deals with different types of themes. We know that all the characters in Volpone are driven by greed. Only two characters are not driven by greed. They are Bonario and Celia. The characters who are greedy hanker after what they do not have. It includes money, power, and so on. In this play, greed turns important persons into fools. The greed of different characters leads to their moral corruption. At the beginning of the play, we see that Volpone plans to steal wealth from his business partners because the legacy hunters are also greedy. They are morally corrupt. Even they encourage the death of Volpone. However, we can say that Volpone transforms from a comical fox into a violent hunter. In the same way, the legacy hunters are also corrupt. They plot against innocent Celia. We see that Corvino will stop at nothing. He wants to be the beneficiary of Volpone. Even he forces his wife to sleep beside Volpone for financial gain. Corruption through greed can also be seen in Voltaire's abandonment of law. Other legacy hunters also create false testimony. Animalization is another theme in the play. It is animalization that transforms the play Volpone into a kind of fable. It refers to Jonson's representation of characters as their namesake animals. It is clear to us that the characters are not as one-dimensional as their names might suggest, but their names are fitting. At the same time, they are memorable. If the names of Jonson's characters can be considered predictors of their actions, the action of the play will not surprise the readers. However, the motivations of every character are revealed through the theme of animalization. Parasitism is an explicit theme that we find in Volpone. We know that Mosca, Corvino, Corbaccio, and Voltaire can be considered parasites in the play. But Mosca is the main parasite. We know that the scum of Volpone depends on the ability of Mosca. Parasitism emerges from Mosca's soliloquy. According to Mosca, it is a universal guiding principle, and that is everyone is a parasite, but some are better at it than others. In the play, we find few characters who act honestly, and the other characters are willing to use any means to gain the fortune of Volpone, and they are all parasites. The theme vengeance is also present in the main plot of the play. At the same time, it is also prominent in the subplot of Volpone. We can understand it when we come to know about the story of Sir Politic and Peregrine. The story points out the ludicrousness of traditional vengeance. Peregrine only thinks he has been wronged, and he drives Sir Politic to leave Venice merely for the satisfaction of saying, "Now we are even." However, this parable teaches us that vengeance is a childish activity. We find the theme deception throughout the play. As a theme, deception has the effect of marking characters for punishment. From the main plot of Volpone, we come to know about Jonson's sense of poetic justice, and that is, any character who deceives another is ultimately punished. We know that Bonario and Celia never engage in deception. They are honest to the last. For this reason, they are freed from punishment. On the other hand, Mosca, Volpone, and the rest of the clients get their punishment. Morality, disguise, justice are some of the themes in the play. We know that the plays of Jonson are generally well constructed. They also obey the classical principles of action, time, and place. And at the same time, the classicism of the plot is also evident in the five-fold structure of exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. But according to some critics, there is a hindrance to the unity of the plot, and the hindrance is the presence of the subplot. According to them, the subplot in the play is unnecessary. It is unnecessary because it does not contribute to the thematic core of the main plot. However, a close study may reveal that the subplot is intimately connected to the main plot. We see that the play Volpone opens with an exposition in harmony with classical principle. Unlike the practice of Shakespeare to begin a play with minor characters, Johnson begins with Volpone himself. If we try to understand the first utterance of Volpone, we understand that it takes the heart of the play. The glorification of Volpone regarding gold indicates the keynote of the play. Volpone reveals his scheme of upsetting the legacy hunters. We come to know about all the legacy hunters. They reveal their immoral values and evil natures. We know that Voltor brings a plate for Volpone. We see that Corbaccio changes his will to please him. We also see that Corvino forces his wife to satisfy Volpone, and Lady Woodby offers herself to gain his legacy. The complication that we find in the first act of the play is that Mosca convinces Corbaccio that writing a will in the name of Volpone as the inheritor would please Volpone. And it may lead Volpone to make him the beneficiary. When we go through the second act, we understand that this act furthers the complication by introducing the theme greed for carnal pleasures. It is a new but related theme in the play. We know that Mosca is the parasite, and he has tempted Volpone in the new direction by describing the beauty of Celia in a charming way. Then he advises that he can behold her by creating a stage beside her window and by selling medicines from there. However, Volpone is successful. He is successful in making Celia buy the medicine. But suddenly we notice the arrival of her husband. He is jealous. Then the action moves towards the crisis when Bonario protects Celia from the chamber of Volpone. And we see that this is totally opposite to the plan of Mosca. We know about his original plan. However, now we see that Volpone realizes that he is to suffer its judicial consequences. According to Italian law, his property would be confiscated and he would be branded with iron. And now the following action. We see that the following action begins with the trials of Volpone. However, the talent of Johnson leads him to create a series of counter movements in the plot in order to sustain the attraction of the audience. We see that Mosca turns the table on Bonario and Celia. He makes Corbaccio and Corvino give false witness against Bonario and Celia, and the evidence is naturally considered unimpeachable by the judges. But we notice the occurrence of a reversal in the plot. Now, the future of Volpone and Mosca seems safe with the rejection of the two. Volpone, who is incensed at his being denied a legacy, reveals everything to the judges. And just when the game starts to be up for Volpone and Mosca, another reversal occurs. Volpone successfully convinces Voltor to tell before the judges that it was under the influence of an evil spirit that he had deposed against Volpone. Now we come to understand that the resolution of the plot follows when Volpone angers at the disloyalty of Mosca. However, now we see that Volpone and Mosca receive their deserved punishment. Some literary critics have almost universally rejected the subplot of Volpone. According to them, the subplot in Volpone is inappropriate and conflicting. The only possible reason that can be noted here is that it is a kind of comic relief to balance the sustained melancholy of the main plot. But one may point out that there are more fundamental connections between the two plots. The first is what John Rea in his edition of Volpone calls the common beast fable. If Volpone is the fox and Mosca is the parasitic fly, Sir Paul is the imitating parrot. However, the perfection that he mimics is Volpone himself. For like Volpone himself finds, he not only concerns himself with intrigues but also plans a get-rich-quick scheme. But whereas Volpone is eminently successful, he is an utter failure. Thereby, into comic focus the fact that Adopt cannot be a mountebank. On the other hand, Letty Would-Be imitates the local style in dress and cosmetics. She reads the Italian poets, and she also tries to rival the indecent Venetians in their game of education. She is also connected with the main plot as one of the legacy hunters, though she adds a new element to it by dint of her femininity. A comedy of humors is a dramatic form. The term comedy of humors comes from the Latin humor, and it means liquid. We know that it is closely related with the English playwright Ben Jonson from the late 16th century. We find the use of comedy of humors in the medieval and Renaissance medical theory that the human body held a balance of 4 liquids or humors. They are blood, phlegm, yellow bile and black bile. When they are properly balanced, they are thought to give the individual a healthy mind in a healthy body. But excess of different fluids have different effects on the human. The humor of blood makes a man excessively optimistic even without the slightest chance of hope or success. Phlegm makes a man excessively calm and docile. Yellow bile makes a man highly ill-tempered. Black bile makes a man excessively melancholy. A comedy of humors refers to a type of drama that generally focus on characters. All the characters represent a type of personality. We know that the characters in Volpone are stereotypes. They represent a character type rather than a flesh and blood. We find some characters in this play who have physical abnormalities. They are Nano, Castron, and Androgino. They are not imbalanced as those who are mentally imbalanced, such as Volpone, Mosca, Voltord, Corvino, Corbaccio, and so on. From the play, we come to know that Volpone is an imbalanced character. At the very beginning of the play, we see that he glorifies gold as his god. Volpone's glorification of gold indicates that Volpone is utterly consumed by greed. He is totally a greedy man. And besides greed, he moves on to blasphemy, as we see that he calls his gold a saint. He earns his wealth by deceiving the legacy hunters. He also derives pleasure by tormenting the legacy hunters. And analyzing all this, we can say that he is mentally imbalanced. We know that in the play Volpone, there are some characters who are like parasites, and Mosca is one of them. He is also greedy like Volpone. He appears in the play to be a greater villain than Volpone. We see that he likes to flatter Volpone, and at the same time he likes to torment the legacy hunters to please Volpone. However, at the end of the play, we come to know about his true colors. He appears in his true colors when he tries to his best to cheat Volpone. The predominant humor in Volpone is excessive greed, and the excessive greed torments the legacy hunters. We know the name of the legacy hunters in the play, and they are Voltord, Corbaccio, and Corvino. We see that Voltord brings an expensive antique plate as a gift to please Volpone. He is so obsessed with money that he can plead against his maker if he were paid a fee of 6 souls more. Corbusier is the oldest of the legacy hunters. He agrees to disinherit his son Bonario in order to inherit the wealth of Volpone. We see that even he disclaims Bonario as his son. We also come to know that Corvino forces his innocent wife to sleep with Volpone. He also denounces his wife as a whore and says that he has seen his wife with his eyes with Bonario. When we go through the play, we come to know that the humors of Sir Politic would be are not inborn but acquired. The humor of Sir Politic is to affect great political skill and statesmanship. In addition to his political humor, he also suffers from the humor of a traveler who takes note of every trivial activity during his visit abroad. Lady Politic would be is a medley of different academic disciplines. Her theory of obsession and belongings is a crude exaggeration of Platonic thinking. We know that she is very greedy. To acquire the wealth of Volpone, she is ready to offer her body. However, it is needless to mention that the characters in Volpone are stereotypes. At the same time, all of the characters in the play are imbalanced. They act in comical ways. We have already known that the play Volpone is written based on a beast fable. And it is mostly recognized as a satiric piece of writing. By means of Volpone, Ben Jonson tried to present his society. We come to know that Ben Jonson tried to present a society where most of the people were influenced by the negative features of Renaissance. We come to know that they lost their morals. At the same time, they degenerated into lower levels of animal existence because of their greed for power and wealth. We come to know about only a handful number of people who were honest, and they were there to be rewarded due to having good qualities. There were several hateful features of the Renaissance spirit, and two of them played brutally to put a bad impact on the society of Elizabethan era. They were the feeling to free the human mind from the influence of religion, and another one is the ambition to gather wealth by any means. We come to know that the play Volpone opens with a glorification of gold, which is totally opposite to the lesson provided by all major religions. And now the audience can easily imagine what the play Volpone is about. It does not take the audience long to sense the characteristics of the immoral individuals of Volpone. In fact, the play represents that how the greed for wealth leads a person to a wrong way. It also represents that the greed for wealth may lead a society to a way that is wrong. We see that some characters have been employed in order to describe the weakness, follies, and sinfulness of human beings. And we know that the evil thoughts grown in human mind may come out through the works that man does. In the play, Volpone the fox, who is the main character, is a rich nobleman. He gains his wealth by pretending serious illness. He collects his wealth by telling some greedy ones that he will make each of them his beneficiary. And we know that the chief agent of Volpone is Mosca, the fly. He is also the plot maker. He tries to deceive others to satisfy Volpone. On the other hand, people who want to be the beneficiaries of Volpone are Voldor the Vulture, a lawyer, Corvusio the raven, however, we also see that Corvusio advises Mosca to poison Volpone. He also wants to disinherit his son for the purpose of gaining all of the wealth of Volpone. And Corvino the crow is the most immoral of all, and he is extremely jealous of his young wife. We see that he offers his wife to Volpone. However, in this way, Ben Jonson, by means of his social satire, tried to present the then society.